Welcome to another edition of Selling Life Annuities. I'm Tim Luby. I'm the National Sales Director for Annuities with Cord Marketing. And with me today is my good friend and associate, Steve Allison. He's our case designer extraordinaire on the Annuity Team. And what we want to talk to you today about is understanding the allocation options for your fixed indexed annuity sales. Okay, so Steve, we spent a lot of time helping our agents with allocations and illustrations and case design. Yep. And ultimately, we usually come up with a allocation that we illustrate for our agents. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do we decide? How do we land on the index allocations that we illustrate, that we share with agents, that they should share with their clients?
Well, a lot of it comes down to, what those indexes are, what the common areas are, either caps or par rates or spreads or even a fixed account. So those are kind of areas that we kind of look at for each one of them. So, like a cap would be, a lot back in, handful of years ago, it used to be around 3 or 4% caps. We're seeing a lot higher caps now, close to 9, 10, or 11% on that. So that's simply just, a day of whatever that index was reading, and then a year later what that index was, and whatever that percentage is, you get up to the cap. If it goes at 5% and your cap was at 10, you get all 5 of it. And so if it's more than 10%, you get just the 10%. But those caps that keep rising are really exciting.
Yeah. And that cap is interesting because that's probably the oldest allocation strategy that's been around for a long time. So that cap strategy, which a lot of people love and they know, and it's very popular and it's typically well understood. It's a little bit easier to understand because you can get up to the 10% cap. Mm-hmm. It's interesting though because now there's a lot of things out there called uncapped strategies. Yeah. The buzzwords today are uncapped, and there are a number of new strategies out there that are uncapped, and so consequently the illustrated values on these can be phenomenal. Yeah, because they're uncapped. To the extent that they're tied to the markets, and market returns can be very high, and rates are up. So participation rates, for example, can be very high. Yeah. You can have some phenomenal illustrated values, which is kind of good and bad. Again, part of the reason for the topic today, understanding the allocation options that you have and what you should sort of prudently do as it relates to selling an indexed annuity and illustrating the allocated values. Yeah. So with that, what are we watching out for? What are we worried about?
Well, we want to make sure that we don't put our client in a situation where maybe they have all of it in one bucket and they want to choose different indexes. Maybe some capped options, maybe some uncapped options where they have some really good potential for growth.
So some diversification, not put all your eggs in one basket, which is always a good idea. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about the par rate. For us, we do it every day, so it's kind of second nature. And even the fact that we're calling it a par rate versus a participation rate. Yeah. Briefly describe how the participation rate works and what they look like today.
Well, participation rates, they'll vary based on the index, but there can be, some like an S&P 500 index may have a participation rate of say 20%. So if the S&P is, you get 20% of what the S&P growth was during that time period. We're seeing some now with different indexes of as high as 300%. So if the index does 10%, right, you'll end up getting a 30% interest.
Yeah, so not on the S&P. 20% is a great par rate on the S&P. Even for a 2-year strategy of 40, even 50 would be really good. But when you talk about the really high percentage participation rates, and they're out there, 300, 350%, those are typically on like managed indexes, and volatility control indexes and some other stuff, not just the straight S&P, right?
Right. That, and they also may be in a 2 or a 3-year index too, as well.
Right.
You have to wait those 2 years or 3 years to get that interest credit to your account. So
right. That's a great point. That's one of the things.
You give them more longer years to get a higher par rate.
Right. Yeah. I used to not like to do much with anything other than 1-year strategies. But I really like the 2 years now. And the reason is they typically outperform the 1-year strategies. Mm-hmm. But the agent and the client have to understand that means you will get a 0 in 12 months. Because there's no credit until the 24 months is up. That's right. So that's kind of important for people to understand. The other way that I often look at that is you are guaranteeing a 0 every other contract anniversary, let's say, on the money that's in that 2-year strategy. Mm-hmm. So that's important, again, for the agent and the client to make sure they understand. Yep. So what are we looking for then? When we're talking about this, what are some of the features that help reduce our anxiety about these strategies and the way we illustrate things? Like for example, I hear about an annual ratchet or an annual reset.
Yeah, well, so that's a good thing for clients, and that they can rest easy knowing that, each year it is that annual reset. So if they get a 5% interest credit to the account, now that's their new floor, and they can't go down below that. It also resets that indexes. So if they had a down year, they're not having to catch back up from what they would have potentially lost if they were in the market. So that reset's really handy for people.
Right. It goes with the whole idea of fixed indexed annuities. There's a lot of reasons that people buy annuities, but safety is certainly one of them. And one of the big things with the fixed indexed annuity is that zero is the hero, right? The fact that there is no downside market risk.
Yep.
We didn't touch a little bit. We danced around it, but there are new options on the market today also where you can actually pay a fee to get higher caps or participation rates.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What's kind of what are the pros and cons of that?
Well, the obvious pro would be you could potentially your interest credit growth amount could be far larger because you're getting a much higher either cap or participation rate. The downside though is it comes with a fee, and so a lot of times these index annuities, the nice thing is the guarantee of the zero is your hero. Your account value can never decrease, but it can in these situations if you have a fee on one of these indexes and they don't perform at all. If you get a zero interest, you still have to pay the fee, which comes out of the account value.
That's right. So it kind of takes away from the zero as the hero. There's still no market risk, but there is a risk of having less than you put in, less than you started with. If your index doesn't perform and you had selected this fee strategy for that option, for that money, right?
Yeah.
Good. So, one of the things that I talk about, and one of the reasons I like this topic to kind of cover this from time to time is it really ought to comes down to how important it is to manage expectations.
Right.
For us to manage an agent's expectations and for us to help him make sure that he manages his client's expectations. So, you know why this is important. I think the biggest reason is because no matter what we illustrate, and we have illustrations that show 4 times the value in just 10 years, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the value in just 10 years. But what I think is most important for clients and agents to understand is that they can and they will get zeros. And in fact, most of those illustrations that show 4 times the value in 10 years, that's highly unlikely to actually happen because it's based on illustrated values and market index returns that are not likely to be repeated, interest rates that may not stay the same for the whole time, that 10-year term that they're looking at. What are the things that you think are probably best to help agents understand that about when it comes to managing their clients' expectations?
Well, no matter how good the illustration looks, because some of these illustrations will look really well, and we typically like to pick some of the ones that will show the best, but they need to realize, like you mentioned before, that it's not going to be anywhere near that probably. Like if you're showing somewhere that's 12 or 13% annual return over the life of the contract, you should probably manage it and be happy with 4 or 5 or 6%. And understand that those zeros are going to come every once in a while, but the idea is you're still zero the hero, you're not losing any money, you're protected from the market risk. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me too that, a couple of years ago, I never dreamt of using a fixed account as an allocation in indexed annuity. But now the index accounts are so extraordinarily high, and the fixed accounts that are offered are highly competitive today. That I often will be putting allocating money to the fixed account now. When you've got a 4.5%, 5.5% guarantee, it doesn't hurt to put some money in that account and sort of have a little bit of a further guarantee that they won't get a zero on the whole account, on the whole contract.
Yep.
So with that, we're kind of running out of time here. But for the benefit of those watching the video, we gave you our contact information, I think. But if they want to reach out and engage with us, you can reach Steve Allison at Gordon at...
my extension is 140. My email address, sallison@gordonmarketing.com.
Right. And I'm Tim Luby at timl@gordonmarketing.com or extension 213 at the Gordon Marketing Annuity Team. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. Please do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe if you will, so you can get each new edition of Selling Life and Annuity Visitors when they come out. And with that, thank you so much for joining us and happy selling.